Most people think $500 billion can buy you anything. But Isabella Chun was about to find out that it couldn't buy the one thing she craved, the truth. For 8 months, the world's wealthiest heiress lived as a penniless maid in her own fiancé's mansion, scrubbing floors that she technically owned. She wanted to see who David really was when he thought she had nothing. And today, in this kitchen, she got her answer. When her future mother-in-law slid a dog bowl of leftovers across the marble floor and told her to know her place, Isabella didn't cry. She didn't even argue. She just looked at the hidden camera in her uniform button and smiled. Because while Patricia Whitmore was busy teaching a maid a lesson, she had no idea that the maid had just finalized the foreclosure on this entire estate. Tonight is the Whitmore Charity Gala. Patricia thinks she's being crowned the queen of society. She has no idea that in exactly 6 hours, the mystery donor is going to walk onto that stage, and she's going to be wearing the very diamonds Patricia tried to steal. This is Elmerum Stories, where African folktales and life-changing lessons unfold. Subscribe, like, and comment and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Stay tuned, because the moment Isabella reveals who she actually is will do more than just end a marriage. It's going to delete the Whitmore name from history. Most people think $500 billion can buy you anything. A private jet fleet, your own island chain, politicians who answer on the first ring. But Isabella Chun wanted to know if it could buy the one thing her father's empire couldn't manufacture, genuine love. For 8 months, the daughter of tech titan Richard Chun lived as a penniless housemaid in the sprawling estate of her fiancé, David Whitmore. She scrubbed toilets that cost more than most people's cars. She polished silverware for dinner parties where guests spent more on wine than she supposedly earned in a year. She wanted to see who David truly was when the designer suits came off and the performance ended. But today, on a gray Tuesday morning in the marble kitchen of Whitmore Manor, she got her answer. The security camera hidden in her uniform button captured everything in high definition. David's mother, Patricia Whitmore, stood in her custom silk robe, the one with hand-embroidered peacocks that cost $40,000. She was scraping leftover lobster risotto from last night's dinner party into a ceramic dog bowl. Not the crystal serving dishes. Not even a regular plate. A dog bowl with princess written on the side in cursive letters. Patricia slid it across the imported Italian tile floor with her slippered foot. It made a scraping sound that echoed through the kitchen. There's your breakfast, Isabella. Or should I say, there's your dinner too. You've been getting far too comfortable eating from our pantry. A maid should know her place. This is premium food, you know. $12 a pound lobster. More than you could afford in a month on your pathetic salary. From the adjacent dining room, laughter erupted. Crystal, champagne bright and cruel. It belonged to Vanessa Lauron, the socialite David had been seeing for the past 3 weeks. The woman he introduced at parties as his close friend, while Isabella was in the kitchen preparing canapes. Isabella stood there in her stained gray uniform, her hands raw from bleach, her knees aching from scrubbing floors. She looked at the dog bowl. She looked at Patricia's satisfied smirk. She looked through the doorway at David, who sat at the dining table reading the financial section of the Times, not even glancing up. He knew what was happening. He'd always known. Isabella didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even argue. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pressed a single button on the phone hidden there. The phone that had been recording everything for 8 months. Every cruel comment. Every dismissive gesture. Every moment David stood by and let it happen. Every late-night conversation with Vanessa that Isabella had overheard while she was cleaning the study. She was documenting every second of the humiliation, but not for a lawsuit. Not for revenge in the traditional sense. For something much more permanent. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore," Isabella said quietly, picking up the bowl. "I'll eat this in my room." "You'll eat it right here," Patricia snapped. "On the floor, where it was served. I want to make sure you understand your station in this household before the wedding. Though between you and me, I'm working on convincing David that you're not suitable. A few more weeks of this, and he'll see you for the pathetic charity case you really are." From the dining room, Vanessa's laughter grew louder. "Oh, Patricia, you're terrible. But honestly, can you imagine her at the club? With the other wives? She doesn't even know which fork to use." Isabella set the bowl down. She knelt on the cold tile floor. And as she did, she smiled. Not a defeated smile. Not a humiliated smile. A smile that would have terrified them if they'd been paying attention. because they thought they were bullying a girl with no family, no resources, no power. They were actually humiliating the woman who, at that very moment, owned the mortgage on their estate, who controlled the trust fund that paid for Patricia's lifestyle, who had just finalized the purchase of Whitmore Industries' outstanding debt through a shell corporation, who had been quietly, methodically, documenting everything for the one night that would matter. Tonight, the annual Whitmore Foundation Charity Gala. The event Patricia had spent 6 months planning, the one where she expected to be crowned the city's greatest philanthropist, the one where the mystery benefactor who donated $50 million would finally be revealed. Isabella stood up, leaving the dog bowl untouched on the floor. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need to request the evening off. I know it's the gala, but I have something important to attend to." Patricia waved her hand dismissively. Fine. You'd just be in the way anyway. Make sure the kitchen is spotless before you go. And Isabella, don't bother coming back. I'm terminating your employment effective tomorrow. David deserves better." "I understand," Isabella said softly. "I hope you enjoy the gala." 8 hours later, the grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Hotel glittered like a jewelry box. 3,000 guests in designer gowns and tuxedos. An orchestra playing Vivaldi. Champagne fountains and ice sculptures, and a who's who of the city's elite. Patricia Whitmore sat at the head table in a custom Valentino gown, her diamonds catching the light like small stars. David sat beside her in his perfectly tailored Tom Ford tuxedo, Vanessa draped on his other arm in Versace. They were holding court, accepting congratulations for the foundation's success, basking in the attention. "Mother, this is your night," David said, raising his glass. "The biggest donation in foundation history. When they announced the benefactor, this will cement the Whitmore name for generations." Patricia beamed. "I just hope whoever it is appreciates proper society. Not like that dreadful girl you were going to marry. Thank God I convinced you to end that farce." "You were right, as always," David said, squeezing Vanessa's hand under the table. "Class recognizes class." The lights dimmed. The orchestra fell silent. The MC, a prominent local news anchor, approached the microphone on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the Whitmore Foundation's annual charity gala. Tonight, we've raised over $12 million for underprivileged children in our community. But the highlight of our evening is the unprecedented $50 million donation from an anonymous benefactor. It is my honor to finally reveal the identity of this generous philanthropist." Patricia smoothed her dress, preparing to look surprised and humble when they called her name. Because obviously, who else could it be? She'd orchestrated the whole thing, convinced her bridge club friends to combine their donations through a single source to make her look good. Please welcome to the stage the CEO of Chun Global Holdings, the woman who has just acquired Whitmore Industries, and tonight's $50 million donor, Miss Isabella Chun. The ballroom fell silent, then erupted in gasps. Patricia's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the table. David's face went white. Vanessa's perfectly painted mouth fell open. The curtains parted. Isabella walked onto the stage, and she was no longer the timid maid in the stained uniform. She wore a custom Elie Saab gown in midnight blue, the fabric catching the light like water under moonlight. Her hair, usually pulled back in a severe bun, fell in perfect waves down her back. Diamonds, real ones, not Patricia's cubic zirconia masquerading as family heirlooms, glittered at her throat and ears. The gown alone cost more than David made in a year. She walked to the microphone with the confidence of someone who'd been trained since birth to command rooms like this. Because she had been. "Good evening, everyone," Isabella said, her voice carrying perfectly through the sound system. "Especially you, Mrs. Whitmore. I do hope the appetizers tonight were to your liking. I made them myself this morning, before I left your employment. I used the same careful attention to detail you taught me, the same standards you insisted upon." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Oh, and the lobster risotto? The scraps you served me in a dog bowl this morning? I made sure the kitchen staff at this hotel prepared it exactly the same way for your table tonight. I thought you'd appreciate the consistency." Behind her, the massive screen flickered to life. High-definition footage played for 3,000 people to see. Patricia sliding the dog bowl across the floor. Her voice, crystal clear. A maid should know her place. Vanessa's laughter. David, sitting at the table, turning a page of his newspaper without even looking up. The ballroom was silent except for the audio from the video. You told me that class is about knowing your place, Isabella continued, her voice steady and calm. You're absolutely right, Mrs. Whitmore. My father, Richard Chun, taught me that true class is measured by how you treat people who can do nothing for you. People you think are beneath you. People you believe you'll never have to answer to. The screen changed. Legal documents appeared. Purchase agreements. Debt transfers. Foreclosure notices. David, you told me you loved me. You proposed with your grandmother's ring, and you spoke about building a life together. But you stood by and watched your mother abuse me because you thought I was poor. You didn't want a wife. You wanted someone you could control. Someone who would be grateful for the privilege of your family name. When you thought I had nothing, you showed me exactly who you are. David tried to stand, but 2 security guards appeared behind him. Professional. Unmoving. As of 6 p.m. this evening, Chun Global Holdings has foreclosed on Whitmore Manor. The estate, the cars, the art collection, the jewelry, all of it belonged to the bank, and I just bought that debt. Mrs. Whitmore, that Valentino gown you're wearing? That's mine now. The diamonds? Also mine. In fact, the chair you're sitting on is mine. The food on your plate is mine. The air you're breathing in that ballroom. Well, I don't own that, but I did pay for the venue. Patricia finally found her voice, standing up and shrieking. This is illegal. You can't just. I can, Isabella said calmly. And I did. Everything was done through proper legal channels. Your family's financial situation has been precarious for years. You've been leveraging reputation and borrowed money to maintain appearances. I simply collected. She turned her attention to Vanessa, who was attempting to slip away from the table. Oh, Vanessa, don't leave on my account. Though I should mention, your trust fund? The one you've been living on since your family went bankrupt in 2019? That's administered by Chun Global Holdings. Has been for years. You might want to reconsider where you direct your laughter in the future. Vanessa froze, her face pale under her spray tan. Isabella's expression softened slightly. She looked out at the ballroom, full of shocked faces. I came to Whitmore Manor 8 months ago in disguise because I wanted to know if love could exist without money, without status, without performance. I wanted to know who David was when he thought I couldn't offer him anything. I got my answer, but I also learned something about myself. She paused, and for the first time that night, genuine emotion entered her voice. I learned that I don't need my father's name or his billions to be powerful. I don't need a husband to validate my existence. I don't need to shrink myself to make small people comfortable. Power isn't about humiliating others. It's about having the option and choosing not to. Except when someone slides a dog bowl across the floor and demands you eat from it while they laugh. The screen behind her changed one final time. A photo of the ceramic dog bowl, sitting on the kitchen counter of Whitmore Manor. Mrs. Whitmore, since you're so fond of teaching people about their place, I've left one item in that house that still belongs to you. It's in the kitchen. Princess's dog bowl. It's the only thing in that mansion you have any right to touch. Consider it a graduation gift from the School of Consequences. Security moved toward the Whitmore table. Not roughly, but firmly. My security team will escort you from the premises. Your belongings, the few that actually belong to you, will be delivered to whatever address you provide. The $50 million I donated tonight will go directly to helping underprivileged children, including a new scholarship program for young women working in service positions who want to go to college. It will be called the Princess Scholarship, named after a dog who was treated better than I was in your home. Isabella turned to leave the stage, then stopped and looked back. Oh, and David, when I found out who you really were, I also found out who I really am. I'm someone who doesn't need a billionaire's name to be powerful. Just patience, documentation, and a deep appreciation for irony. I hope you and Vanessa are very happy together. At the youth hostel, she walked off stage to stunned silence. Then slowly, starting from the back of the ballroom, applause began. It built like a wave, crashing through the room until 3,000 people were on their feet. Isabella Chun didn't look back. She'd already seen everything she needed to see. In the kitchen of what used to be Whitmore Manor, a single ceramic dog bowl sat on the marble counter, illuminated by moonlight through the window. Engraved on the bottom, invisible unless you turned it over, were 8 words that Isabella had added that morning before she left. True class is knowing when to walk away. She'd learned that lesson well. And unlike the Whitmores, she hadn't needed scraps to teach it to her.